Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun. Merry Christmas,
Oh,
everyone.
oh
What a
no.
Tiny Tim's gonna go up there and say that, and then everybody's gonna just chase Tiny Tim away because this is the most miserable Christmas, arguably, I have seen since the Rosado family Christmas dinner on the Bear.
It was so miserable. Oh my goodness. Everybody was going through it. I mean,
Yeah.
like, are Pete and his wife at this point like headed towards divorce on all of this? Navarro lost her sister in this. Danvers is just down a hole drinking and making a mess of everything. It was just really bad all around. Hank, your new wife, not there for you. You are alone still. Like, it was just so bad for everybody.
I love this episode. I don't know what that says about me because ironically, I thought I was too stressed out by the Bear Christmas episode, but for some reason, I don't know. There was a couple of times I laughed where I probably wasn't supposed to laugh, but it's just like I really enjoyed so much of this, and I think some of it is mostly just because of the end of this episode, where it is time now to debut my Otis impression.
Oh,
You're all in the night country now. This is my
you sound like
favorite.
Russell Hantz from Survivor.
Okay, this is my
It's very close.
It's also very close to my Childress impression from season one because
Yes.
this is my favorite ending of a True Detective episode since my family's been here a long, long
It's very-
time. It all kind of connects back to that. It's just like
Oh man.
this episode, yeah, it gave me a lot of just like silliness fodder, but at the same time, like it's raising a lot of really, really big questions as to what's actually going on here, what all
Yeah.
is connected, and is this show actually getting a little bit too supernatural?
That's the thing about it. Like, is this show actually going in that direction? And, I was actually just talking to my brother about this the other day because he's also a huge fan of the show. And we were talking about when Lund sat up in bed. My brother was just like, I'm almost out on this show at this point. Like, it's getting too supernatural for me. And while there's always been sort of this idea of visions or supernatural elements to it, like in season one with Rust, where he's like, oh, I have these visions. It's like, it turns out that it's not supernatural. He was doing a lot of drugs while he was undercover, and then eventually it all just went away, right? So there was always kind of like, you pull off the Scooby-Doo mask and there's a person under there. It's not, there's a ghost under there. And this show's been really good about doing that.
Yeah.
So are we actually this season, though, dipping our toe into real supernatural ghosts? Because if we are, this episode is really pushing that narrative to put on your hard hat if you don't want that we are going in that direction, seemingly.
Is there still a scientific explanation for all of this? We will do our best
Yes, please.
to comb through all of it within this video to talk all about this very, very miserable but endlessly entertaining Christmas. But before we go further here, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any more True Detective coverage. And, by subscribing, you help us to be able to make these videos that we love to do for you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, go ahead and put on your tinfoil hats, everybody, because this is
all
a
right.
little bit of what I think is going on here. And, there's going to be a larger theory video about some of this a little later in the week.
Absolutely. We love theories here. We've said
Yeah.
this before. We'll say it till the end of time, till the wheels fall off. If you guys got theories, put them in the comments. We've got theories.
Yeah.
There are no wrong theories because at this point, there are no answers. So we're all in this together in
Yeah.
the pool. No wrong theories.
For that theory video, I'm going to try to put on a lab coat and try to do some like real medical research on some of this to
Nice.
feel like if any of this is actually possible. But,
Nice.
I've heard some people talk about this in the comments and, I've talked about it in videos in the past. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, this is all brand new. But at the same time, I think it's becoming more and more clear to me that there is some sort of illness that is spreading through this town that is caused by something. And the idea that makes the most sense is that this is something that has been caused by whatever was uncovered under the ice, because this is not something that, I have to research that much just from the vantage point of, there's enough evidence about this already, is that if they're sort of digging up something in the permafrost that has been there for, tens of thousands of years, if not longer, whether it's the bacteria, the microbial structure of like all that sort of stuff, like that's not going to be adapted to, today's environment, to today's people, today's time. And there
Yeah.
is this real irony in the idea that, okay, this thing that the scientists at Salal were trying to research to, make the world better or give the Tunnels control or whatever ultimately that end game is. But that idea then is like, it's actually going to be the thing that destroys everybody. And
Yeah.
at first, it was kind of hard to really buy fully into this because it's like, okay, the people at Salal are reasonably isolated. They go up there, there's somebody who brings them food. But this is the thing. There is somebody who goes up there and brings them food. And we know that Annie K has been up there. And we know the hairdresser has been up there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility then that, like, okay, it's starting to spread around a little bit here. And the quote, "You're all in the night country now," like, outside of just being like an amazing quote, I think it's also may just be a reference of, okay, we are all the Walking Dead in that sort of way where
I was about to make the same reference,
Okay.
and it's like, it's too late, guys, sorry, but you're all part of it.
Yeah, it's just like, it really feels like that could be a little bit of where we're going with this, because Otis would certainly at least have some sort of knowledge at this point, given that he ran into Clark. He clearly has Clark's jacket.
Yeah, and the other thing is I don't think it's obviously coincidence that we opened this whole show
Yeah.
with these deer that are like all of a sudden like scared, go running, jumping off a cliff, like something is happening to them all of a sudden where it's like they were fine and then they weren't. And it feels like that's been a theme of the people who have been dying, like sort of with the scientists, where it was like they were fine, they, went out, folded their clothes, and then they weren't fine, right? Like all of a sudden it was really bad.
Yeah, like there is this whole sort of theme and idea of the corruption of nature that has sort of been going on here for a while. I mean, you can attribute some of this to, the one-eyed polar bear. I mean, we did a video all about the one-eyed polar bear a few days ago. We'll have it in the description below.
And we saw it again in this episode, actually like walk up to Danvers' car and look at her.
Yeah, and like that's representative potentially of a lot of different things, including, her own personal trauma. But at the same time, the idea that it has one eye, yes, the stuffed animal does, but it's also kind of an idea of like, okay, here's yet again another sort of imperfect representation of nature within this world. And then you look at the mine itself. I mean, yes, in a lot of ways, Salal is corrupting nature in like the most extreme ways possible because they're sort of extracting things that aren't meant to be in the world today and trying to use those in order to, quote unquote, cure the world. But here with the mine, you have something that is just like very front facing, very much we're here to take things from the earth and we're causing a lot of problems that nobody in the community can ignore. It's like the opposite of the research station in that way.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I have said this before, I think that the mine is connected to Salal. I know Kate has sort of been, she's in charge of the mine. I know I'm doing a lot of air quotes in this video. I apologize. But like, I know that it's been...
It's your video. You do what you want.
That's right. I do what I want. No,
do what I want.
No, but
it's the night country.
We're all in it now. Okay, no, I know that Kate is in charge of the mine, but that doesn't mean she has like 100% ownership stake in the mine.
No, probably not. I mean, like big mining or big oil, like it's got a couple hands usually in that, it may not just be only Kate.
Yeah, and so I think all of this is just connected to this big idea of how can you stop the corruption of nature in a world and of a society that has sort of just built up this reputation of just like exploiting it time after time after time. And, this show is telling that in some literal ways, but also kind of telling it in metaphorical ways at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, we saw everything that happened with Leah, that she was there. She's writing what she wrote on the front of the, mining company. And then we saw Danvers have to go down and pick her up. And they have this fight where she's just like, you just don't get it. You just don't understand. You're always taking their side. And Danvers on the other side is just kind of feeling like that she's not really taking their side. She's trying to make it that, her daughter doesn't have a record, where Kate's like, I'm going to charge her. And she's like, oh, for real? Like, it's Christmas Eve. Stop. It's a little bit of spray paint. We'll send some people over to clean it up. Like, there's no real damage. Like, go home and celebrate Christmas. But, for Danvers, it ends up with her and Leah being like really split. Like, she leaves and goes over to Kayla's house. And, she's left by herself.
Yeah, and this is a situation where Danvers is just sort of refusing to look at Leah's point of view in any of this. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's just her anger, her frustration, her stress level, or she's just always been like this, where she's not willing to look at things from all perspectives. And I think honestly, that's probably the thing that's most hurting her in this case at the moment, where she's not looking at this through the point of view of nature or even entertaining the possibility that there could be something that's going on there.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, we did end up in this spot at one point where, we saw everything that happened with Julia. We saw Navarro get that really painful
Yeah.
call where she went down to the hospital and was like, "You guys were supposed to be watching my sister. Like, she came here for help. Like, how could this happen? You guys, aren't watching her." And they're like, "Well, it's voluntary. Like, we can't like trap her in here." But at the same time, she's like, "Okay, but nobody's gonna watch or like try to talk to her, like nothing." And now she's dead. And then we have this conversation later with Navarro and Danvers, where they sort of talk a bit about Wheeler and what
Mhm.
happened there, as well as what happened to sort of just Navarro in her past. That, her mom had started having these like weird visions, and, she is gone. And then now this has happened to Julia. Now she is gone. And Navarro's like, and now it's happening to me. I'm telling you, like, I am, it's coming, it's calling me as well. Danvers then tries to call out something that happened with Wheeler where Navarro had this vision of the woman who was dead on the floor get up, start screaming and pointing at her. And she was really like pounding this on Navarro to be like, "You saw something, you saw something." And Navarro's kind of like, I didn't, like, kind of thing. It was very interesting to see that conversation switch like that quickly.
I think this is where it can be really challenging to sort of justify or explain what I said earlier about a possible illness spreading through the town, because it's sort of this question then of like, okay, if this is all happening because of the research center, why did Navarro potentially see that with Wheeler? And that's where I don't think everything is just so simple as that the research center is causing everybody to just have these hallucinations or see people or whatever. I mean, some of this may be mental health struggles, but I think,
Maybe some of it came out of the mine. I mean,
yeah,
they've been mining there a long time. Maybe they mined into something and your theory still stands.
yeah, it could very well be. And I think it's all this though coupled with just this idea of, trauma, and that you carry it with you no matter where you go. And that's
Yes.
sort of the reason why even, on Christmas morning, Danvers is still thinking about Holden and, Twist and Shout, which we also did a video about, and we have that link in the
Yeah.
description. But like, it is a situation here where these things from the past are constantly just sort of coming back up, and memories manifest themselves at times in different ways. And for the Wheeler situation in particular, like, that may just be manifesting itself for Navarro in that way there, because it's something horrible. She's in this really horrible situation. She's thinking about terrible things that have happened or could have happened.
Yeah, it might also be that Navarro doesn't want to admit that something like that happened back then
Yeah.
because of whatever decisions they ended up making back
Yeah.
then, right? We don't know what they actually ended up doing. We just know that Danvers told Pete this story that was not entirely true. She had said that Wheeler was dead when they got there. That was not the case. We saw that that was not the case. So, maybe Navarro doesn't want to admit to seeing this woman dead in front of her because it would then snowball into all the events that they actually took action on.
I just want to take a second here to give Callie some flowers for this performance in this
Amazing,
episode.
right?
Like, because
Amazing.
we all knew Jodie Foster would be incredible going into this show. Like,
And
that's,
she is.
yeah, and of course she is. But, Callie's somebody who's known being a fighter for like an athletic career going into this and a lot. And by the way, I would not want to be any one of those guys who's getting like beaten up by. I know Navarro was outnumbered, but still.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, she got her swings in, but she definitely, took it pretty bad.
Yeah, I just think she was so incredible in this episode, and like there was so much material for her to really work with and sort of dive into. But the other, okay, this is me unraveling my own theory here a little bit, because this is the other issue that I sort of am having right now with the idea of this all being some sort of illness. And this is why there needs to be research done on this subject. It is just that whether it be Julia or the scientists, the idea that they all folded up their clothes and sort of neatly packed them away before going out there. Like with the scientists at Salal, you could sort of make this argument that's like, okay, maybe Clark did all of this for them, or maybe somebody else came in, or maybe there's some sort of trick going. But the idea that Julia did the same exact thing, and while I guess technically we haven't seen a lot of people like go and check up on that.
Hmm.
For now, I'm gonna take that as what we saw it as, which is that Julia did the same thing as the scientist. I can't think of any sort of, disease or problem that would like trigger that specific symptom among totally separate groups of people who may, have some sort of indirect connections, but it's like that's the specific part of it that I'm kind of struggling with the most, unless this is just some sort of a metaphor of, I'm packing away my old self and I'm moving into sort of my new self.
It might be. I mean, there's a few things on the show that feel like this. Okay, let's talk about Oliver. So
Yeah.
they ended up going to see him gone.
Yeah.
Gone for such a long time that his Jenny wasn't running anymore. Everything inside his place was just frozen.
Yeah. And there's spirals.
Yes, the spiral. So we've talked at length, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. We've
Yeah.
seen it all over online about the spirals and how they're very connected to season one and to the titles and all of that sort of thing. But, we haven't had as much connection in the past, like episode or episode and a half sort of thing, where the titles haven't been brought up. Rust and his dad and all that have not been brought up. So it's kind of like, are the spirals for this season actually connected to season one or not?
I think it's a complicated question at this point. I think it's clearly a callback. I don't think any of us can sit here and pretend like there's no tie
It is,
at
but
all.
is it an Easter egg or is it actually connected? I still feel like it is, but then I'm kind of like, okay, well then why are they in Oliver's place like this? Not only are they like drawn, but they're also like etched into a rock, which I found very interesting as a callback to season one, because a lot of the spirals were actually etched into people's skin. They were like burned into skin.
My idea of it right now is just this idea that everybody who the Tuttles in some way impact sort of become corrupted, become sort of branded in this way with this spiral as sort of like a symbol of the chaos and despair. Like it's possible that somebody like Oliver realized what was coming at the research station, what they were digging into, and he tried to sort of escape it, but even still, he had already been corrupted in some way. Like he already has that spiral all around him, that darkness that he still cannot escape because he probably knows things and there's probably things he could do about it to have things go differently. And I mean, it's the same thing where we go to, the dredges at the end of the episode, like the
Yeah.
spiral is present there as well, which means to me, it's like, okay, so once again, here's another place that may have been corrupted by the Tuttles already. Like, I think it's not a coincidence that the spiral is located either in places or people who may have had some sort of interaction with them, whether it be Clark. I mean, Annie K is
Yep.
clearly connected here somewhere, somehow. I don't think it's a coincidence, though, that we haven't seen the spiral, with characters like, Danvers or Navarro or Leah or like, P, like these people who are not directly affiliated with these other places.
Yeah, it's not on purpose. Like we have that scene with Danvers sitting in the spiral of pictures, but that was not the
Yeah.
same at all. That was just a beautiful visual for us
Yeah.
as the viewers that she doesn't realize she's in the middle of it kind of thing, right? Like, but yeah, like the actual spiral is in places that are not connected to them. But speaking of the dredge and where we got to the end with Otis, and then we really saw everything with Navarro really pull apart. She sees like her sister floating by. She sees the bare footprint. She actually comes face to face with her sister, which is exactly what happened with her sister in this institution where she looked under the bed with the orange rolling and she sees her mother under there. And then she folds up her clothes and leaves and goes and dies. Now we have Navarro having the same sort of thing where she sees her sister and then all of a sudden she's like sitting in front of this tree. There's like blood coming down her face. It's like, is she gonna die?
I think it's very good that Danvers is there. Like, if there is a way to stop this, and that's sort of the big question at this point, is there, like, did Clark try to stop it? Was Clark enabling it back at
Mhm.
Salal? We don't know. But if there was a way to stop it, at least Danvers is there to try to do something about it. And maybe this is sort of reflective of earlier on in the episode, because we saw Julia struggling even before before she went to the institution,
Yeah.
but she was found. And so maybe there's a way that Danvers is going to be able to actually help this. I don't want to lose Navarro at this point. We still have 2 episodes to go. Like, she's too good of a character for us to not continue to have her be a part of this.
Okay, let's talk about Otis, because that conversation that he ended up having with Danvers and what we learned about him, that he also had, like, self-inflicted, like, bite wounds and, like,
Yeah.
all the same stuff that happened to the scientists have happened to him.
Yeah.
And when they have this conversation of, like, why are you wearing that jacket? Like, where did you get it from? Where is Clark? He says that he's gone,
Yeah.
that he's hiding in the night country.
Yeah, I think that Otis is somebody who is on some level trying to actively resist what is happening to him. I think he sees it coming. I think he's trying to avoid it. You can already see, like, the symptoms are all very much there. I mean, I think, the idea we're all in the night country. I mean, ridiculousness aside, I think it is sort of a reference to the idea that they're all in it. They're all in the
Yep.
thick of it. I think Clark knows on some level that whatever's happened to everybody else is also happening to him, but he's trying to run from it. And I think the question is, why? Is it because he knows the truth and he doesn't want anybody else to know the truth? Is he just, afraid of his own life? I think there's clearly something that Clark knows that's extremely valuable. I think just the question is, what is the actual complicity of it? I think we need a person that we can sort of identify on the show as, okay, this person is the real problem. I think it's just like, oh, science killed everybody. It's that's a little bit harder, I think, to accept versus just like, okay, maybe he's the person who unlocked the science, who really spread it around. Something like that is a little easier to digest.
Or are ghosts killing everybody, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
we had this conversation with Rose as well, where she was kind of like, she revealed a bunch of stuff about herself and was basically like, yeah, now I'm living here, and it's mostly okay except for all the ghosts. And it's just like, she's been seeing people, Navarro's been seeing
Yeah.
people, Julia's been seeing people. Like, now we have Danvers seeing this one-eyed polar bear, which I am convinced doesn't exist. I feel like it's part of her own trauma
Mhm.
in her mind, and the same thing with Navarro. I know that she came up against the one-eyed polar bear as well. I don't think that this one-eyed polar bear really exists. I think it's all sort of connected to what happened to Holden, but this whole thing feels like to me that it's really about dealing with trauma and
Yeah.
trauma from the past. And, could it be ghosts? Sure, it could be. We could be going into a supernatural way. There's lots of discussion about
Yeah.
that line. Could it be science is killing everybody and they've
Yeah.
discovered some sort of bacteria? Sure, that can happen. Absolutely, that can happen, and we could be going in that way. But because this show in the past has really been more, by the time we get to the end, it's like, now it's really based in some sort of like reality of like something like trauma, which is something that this show does very well. I mean, Russ' character is really like lived in trauma, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, is it possible that that's what we're looking at here as well? Yes, Danvers has gone through some serious trauma, and so is Navarro, 2 women that are now coming together, dealing with these horrible things that have happened in the past and the horrible things that are happening now.
Yeah, I tend to lean very much in the, okay, I don't think this show is getting overtly supernatural. I think they're playing with metaphor. I think they're playing with trauma. I think there's a lot of that sort of stuff going on. But we've mentioned already things and people who may not be there. And what better time to talk about Arena? Poor Hank. I'm being kind of sarcastic because Hank's done some bad things, and so it's like I don't have that much sympathy for him. But it's okay. There's a part of this storyline that is just sort of ridiculous. The sight of him showing up to the plane with like the stuffed animal and her not being there, getting back. He's got rose petals all over the
I
bed.
felt really bad for him. I'm not gonna lie.
It-
Like, when you're really lonely and
Yeah.
like, especially out there, that has been a theme. And especially in this episode where it is very much like, you're alone up here. Like, this is
Yeah.
a very lonely place, and making connections is extremely difficult. to see him show up like that, so excited, everything he had done at home, painted the room her favorite color, the rose petals,
Yeah.
the champagne in the fridge, like everything that he was doing for her was just, you could see the loneliness in him. This is
I
the first time this season that really broke my heart for him.
I think what's going on with him is I know it's easy to just sort of dismiss all of this as like, okay, this is a distraction. It doesn't matter that much to what's actually going on. But I kind of feel like, one, he's being catfished, but like,
Sure.
two, whoever is catfishing him, I kind of feel like it is somebody who may know a thing or two about what he has done in the past. We know from this past episode that he didn't give all of the information on the Annie K case way back when. It's possible he's hidden some other stuff. Maybe he's, been paid by the mines to keep things secret here or there.
Maybe we need to call in Neve and Cammy so that they can come in and
Oh,
find out who the catfish is.
we really need them at the Danvers and Navarro. Their hands are full. I don't think they're going to have time to investigate. Neve's going to need a big coat for being up
I
there.
know.
But no, but I do think that it's got to be connected in some way to everything else, and it's just sort of another symptom of, okay, here's somebody else who was involved in, the corruption of this greater world. And I'm not saying Hank has to be necessarily this character that is all bad, but he's a
Mhm.
character who may have done some bad things. And this is sort of a consequence that is coming as a result of it.
Absolutely. It could be something deeper and, to quote on Fargo, the consequences are coming.
Yeah, it just feel I don't think we're spending all that time on that story for no particular reason.
No, like at most I feel like, it's got to be connected in some way, and at least it's just another way of showing the loneliness that's going on in this town. Like
Yeah.
this episode definitely showed that with all the terrible things that had happened to each of our characters.
Yeah.
It also showed how isolated they were going through each of these things.
Yeah, and that's why I think they played it so brilliantly, whether it be, Kayla wants nothing more than time with her husband, who has been very busy and immersed in the case, and,
Yep.
Pete's just like fully immersed in all of this guilt. I will say the part of this episode that both made me laugh and also made me viscerally angry, Danvers throwing out the turkey. I was so upset. I was just like, okay, for one, yeah, I know that you screwed everything up with Leah. You don't have to toss the full turkey. Like, there's plenty of people. I love turkey. I would have gladly eaten that turkey.
Listen, I love turkey too, but I don't want a sad turkey where it's like, my stepdaughter's just walked out on me. I don't know when or if I'm going to see her again. And now I'm going to cook the Christmas turkey. Nobody wants to eat a sad turkey. You just have something else.
The only thing I really kind of thought a lot about, and I I can't speak for the prices of turkey in particular, but I've watched a lot of YouTube content about how expensive food prices are in these remote
I
places.
know. Navarro was saying that those cookies are $20.
Yeah, I was just like, that might be a really expensive turkey. It's like every
I'm sure
time
it is.
I see the orange, and I know the orange is just an image. It's just like I can't imagine how much it costs to have like citrus up there in Alaska in some remote part like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But this is a phenomenal episode. I think we still have so many more questions as to what is really going on, but
Mhm.
rest assured, we're going to dive into so much of it. Like, we're going to do our theory video coming up this week about the illness, what's really going on here.
Yeah, we'll also have a preview coming
Yeah.
up too.
Yeah, so hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any of that. And, click on that link right there if you want to watch our video all about the twist and shout theory, what's going on, what it means.
Yeah.
Also, join our Patreon. We have a link in the description below for that, for exclusive content. And thank you to our patrons for your support.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys here next time.